Welcome to a spooktacular live stream. I guess I should kick it off by saying, grab your sticks.
I don't have one.
Heat them up.
There you go.
Make them functional.
Right.
And there we go. Craig is joining me from Yes Have Some podcast. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to join the show. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a nice time with family and food and all that stuff.
Well, Canada actually celebrates.
Right, you're in Canada
in October, but in honor of our American neighbors, my wife and I actually had a turkey dinner on American Thanksgiving. So
cool.
Why not? Any excuse to have a turkey dinner. Couple quick hellos. Retro Tinker, hello there. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining. It's the man of man, old man these days. I'm Mike. Fingers crossed that fans of Ecto have it happen. And I made this as the YHS and Michael Mercy mashup I never knew I needed. Stephen, hello there. And hi there. Mike, good to see you. Some good brothers, good men in the chat there. Before we kick it off, I always try to do the plugs first because I always forget to do them. Oh, sure. Global Wave is here too, another good brother. I always forget to do them at the end. So give some plugs. Where can people find you and what do you talk about on your channel and on your podcast?
Yeah, thanks. So Yes Have Some podcast or YHS podcast is available on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that. We also are on YouTube at YHS Podcast, so we do a video version of the pod every week, and then we all, do various levels of content, and toy room tours, and which I just did a Ghostbusters collection tour on the podcast channel, and we do vlogs, we do all sorts of stuff Ghostbusters related. We've had a really busy 2024. So we had the fortunate opportunity to do a bunch of behind the scenes coverage for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And we're out at the world premiere, and all of it's captured right there on the YouTube channel and organized pretty well. So not too hard to find. And then our other channel is Toy Anxiety. Tuesday nights, we do a live stream, 9:30 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday night with the three of us and our good pal, Ryan Dole. And we do just general toy talk, toy and action figure enthusiasts. We're loud. We get on each other's nerves. We get on the chat's nerves, and the chat gets on our nerves. So it's a big fun party every Tuesday night. Yeah, we just love this stuff. So I do, Michael, you have a very
call me Mike.
Mike. You've got a great YouTube following, and everybody knows your channel. So I just appreciate you inviting me on to chat about this HasLab.
Oh man, my pleasure. Thank you for like you were saying before, short notice, but thank you for hopping on. And
sure,
there's a tag there in the description of the video. It's the little @ symbol, and so just click on there and it'll take you to Craig's YouTube channel. And I'm hopefully I get to chat with you guys on your channel someday as well. I got to take this thing off because
right,
it's digging into my forehead.
Sure.
I don't know how some people, when they're doing the cosplay, they wear these for like the whole 8 hours.
Oh no.
And this is like a Spirit of Halloween weighs next to nothing
type
of thing. But I want to give a quick shout out to the Detroit Ghostbusters. Just had the chance to meet them this past weekend, last weekend,
cool.
At a charity. It was Port Huron Comic Con, Fantastic Comic Con, but they do a lot of charity events in the Michigan area too.
Oh, cool!
Incredible guys. Real life Ghostbusters, closest thing that you'll ever find to a real life Ghostbuster. They're always doing amazing stuff for the community outreach. They had coloring sheets and buttons for the kids, and they go above and beyond for the photo ops. So they had an Ecto-1 there, and it wasn't just stand in front of Ecto and get a picture, but all the Ghostbusters are there. They all do the Ghostbusters point or the thumbs up. So you're flanked by Ghostbusters. And what really impressed me is they had a bunch of Proton packs there, both the full-size Spirit of Halloween packs as well as the 80% ones for the kids.
Sure.
So, fans get to wear a Proton pack. And do you remember what it was like the first time you slipped on your own Proton pack?
Well, let me think. I mean, I had obviously the Kenner Proton pack as a kid. That was kind of standard issue for any kid wanting if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you had to have the Kenner pack.
Yeah.
But as far as adult life, I actually
Yeah.
do. So we started going to Dragon Con, which is a big convention, a very cosplay focused convention in Atlanta every year, and it's one of the biggest fan run conventions in the country, maybe the world. And that's where we started seeing the Ghostbusters cosplayers and the fan groups and the charity groups. And I think I was probably, I don't know, this had to be close to 20 years ago at this point, but I remember the first time just seeing a Proton pack and just being like, well, I didn't even know that was a possibility. I didn't know you could have a Proton pack. So I remember building my first one and getting all my parts sourced from gbfans.com. And the first time you put on that flight suit or put on a Proton pack, it's pretty awesome. It's kind of like living a childhood dream.
It's pretty special. I remember the first time I put on, well, I got the Spirit of Halloween pack, the 80% one, before I got the HasLab one, and that was amazing. But then putting on the HasLab, I did a video about it, and it just this thing right here is one of my ultimate holy grails. Like, if someone were to ask me in your entire toy room, what's the most special thing in there, the flag is always going to be like breathtaking, and
number one.
There it is. But this Proton pack is, I've got it on a full-size mannequin just so that I don't have to have it sitting on the floor, displayed in style. So watching the Detroit Ghostbusters put a Proton pack on fans and just seeing their faces light up, it's so much better than just, hey, I'm standing next to Ecto-1, but getting to wear an actual Proton pack. So we're here talking about, a couple more people have joined the chat there. Hey, Matt, good to see you. And McFly Toys, hi there. Talking about the HasLab Ecto-1, and it looks like it's going to fund. We're at 11,259, which is quite a bit more than when I asked you if you wanted to do a live stream. And we got 3 days left, 5 hours. Great countdown here going on Hasbro Pulse. And I mean, I was positive this thing was going to fund a couple days ago, even like a week or two ago when it was looking slow. It always spikes. It always spikes. And just sometimes people, hey, Casey, how's it going? It always spikes. And I think even if it's got some ways to go, I think the company itself is going to chip in, or other companies like Big Bad Toy Store will order a whole bunch, or some of the other online retailers are just going to spike it so that this thing crosses the finish line, because HasLabs will sell. I don't think they'll ever just sit there for 5 years unsold.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to kind of track this one from the beginning. We on our channel are we're very invested in all of the HasLab projects. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Brian Brink. He's watches a lot of the toy channels, and he makes these really detailed charts, these data-driven charts that track all of the different HasLab campaigns and how they compare to each other, and has like projections. It's very it's a lot of math involved. Not really my thing, but I do enjoy looking at the charts. And it's been crazy to kind of like, we were lucky enough to kind of be a little bit in the know that they were working on this project. They did they did the Proton pack, and then they did the 2 in the box, which was the trap and the PKE meter, and both of those HasLab projects were super successful. Excuse me. And then I think they were at a little bit of a crossroads to figure out what to do next. Should they do another prop, or should they do something like an Ecto? I think one of the kind of things hanging out there is the Plasma series hasn't had a new figure in about 3.5 or 4 years. So I think there was a little bit of a risk in doing an Ecto for that scale, but also anybody who's collected Ghostbusters for a long time knows there's never been a 6-inch scale Ecto-1.
Right.
And
the Maddie collector one, they had a whatever you want to call it, crowdfund type of, and it didn't cross the finish line. And how many years ago was that?
So that was 2013, I think, 25. I mean, it's been over 10 years
ago. Yeah.
And and that one was weird. And I guess that, props to Mattel for being early on in the crowdfunding space. They had some success with like the Castle Gray Skull.
Yeah.
And,
I'm still, I love it, but I can't believe they downsized it. That's still the one little thing that I'm like, I can't believe they shrunk it, because the original, the way they presented it was supposed to be a little bigger than what
A little
they ended up
bigger.
producing. But
Yeah, I mean, if you remember the Ecto-1, they had like a famously had a like a foam cutout of the Ecto-1, and then they launched it, and then it kind of stumbled out of the gate a little bit, and then it was supposed to go longer, and then they just cut it off. And but anyways, we'll let bygones be bygones.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what I wanted to bring up about this particular one,
Sure.
you brought up the previous Ghostbusters, and this is from your channel, and I wanted to talk to you because you got to see at least the prototype in person.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're not just looking at pictures and videos like the rest of us, but you actually got to talk to the Hasbro team and see this thing. And
Yeah.
I loved your reaction to it. I loved how this was not just cool. This was special. This to you was like the Proton pack to me. Or it doesn't always have to be expensive. It's too far for me to reach. But I don't know if you're into wrestling at all. Or
I really, really am. Yeah.
you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Big Rubber Guys, Dusty Rhodes.
I just ordered mine yesterday from Ringside Collectibles.
I just got mine, and holding it in my hand, I knew it was going to be awesome, because I've always wanted an LJN Dusty back in the day. Always wanted one, and they never made one. And polka dots or not, I don't care. I love Dusty in the polka dots. I love him in the black. I just love the American dream, and my family does too. He's one of the ultimates for me. And holding that LJN, I went again. I looked around the whole room of like hundreds of toys, and I went, son of a gun, flag, Proton pack, LJN style Dusty Rhodes. Really? I wasn't expecting this to be this special to me, but your reaction to seeing the HasLab Ecto in person was the same as mine, seeing that LJN Dusty. And man, I just love him so much. He's standing over there with the spotlight on him, daddy.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, not to go on too much of a tangent, but just I hope I sometimes, because I'm a big fan of what they do. You know, Matt Cardona and Brian Myers and that whole team.
Good dudes.
They're great guys. We've had Matt on our show, and you know, he's a huge Ghostbusters fan too. And I hope that the toy collecting community, you know, is seeing the Big Rubber Guys and what they're doing, because you know, within the wrestling space, I think they're pretty well known and they're growing. For what it's worth, I think Big Rubber Guys is one of the most interesting and cool, you know, independent toy lines going right now. So
it's the only toy line I regularly collect anymore, and I think everything they're, you know, the new Transformers look great, and people always send me pictures of the new Studio series, and it looks great, and the classifieds, a lot of classifieds look fantastic, but I'm good. I reached the point where I'm like, okay, I think we're good. It's just got to be the special ones from now on. So Demolition, when they did the Demolition, fantastic. Everything they've done so far is fantastic. Bad News Alan, because of the copyright. But that was another one on my top 5 list of LJNs that never got made, and I wish they would. So they're knocking it out of the park. But anyway, talking about another holy grail, seeing this thing in person, and talking to some of the Ghostbusters fans with the Detroit Ghostbusters guys. It's weird. The Ghostbusters fan community is more about, I feel like compared to other fandoms, like Transformers is all about the toys. G.I. Joe is all about the toys, and the comics and the cartoons fuel the fun, but it's the toys. The toys are the nucleus, and everything around it orbits the toys. Whereas with Ghostbusters, I talked to a few of the guys, and they love Ghostbusters, not so much into the toys. So I asked them, like, are you getting the Ecto? And I backed it, like, absolutely, this is going to be the ultimate. And I'm not even into that scale, really, the 1/12 scale, 6-inch figure scale. That's not even my my bag.
Scale. Gotcha.
To me, the ultimate Ecto would be that 1/6 scale Ecto, but just I can't justify the cost of it or the space. Like I'd have nowhere to put it. I've got the 1/6 scale Hot Toys tumbler, and I fired my shot. You know, like I can I got space for one gigantic 6 scale ridiculous vehicle, and I was like, Ecto or the tumbler, and you know, I got the tumbler.
Well, I get that too, because I'm a huge Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises fan. So
I love it. I love it so much. But like, if it can't have that, then I mean, this is the one with the
Yeah.
sounds and the lights and the interchangeability on the roof.
Yeah.
It's really, they've thrown everything into this. But talking to Ghostbusters fans, they're like, any HasLab prop, they're there.
Yep.
Day one backed. Proton pack backed. Like,
Yep.
not even checking the budget. 2 in the box. I'm so excited about 2 in the box. I backed that too. I was like, yes. The trap, I've never picked up a cheap Spirit of Halloween trap because they were always sold out. I did pick up a cheap PKE meter that works half the time because I dropped it. So I'm so excited. And the interactivity of the way they interact with each other.
They're
with the
great.
voices
They're
and stuff.
fantastic. Yeah.
So it's funny that with Ghostbusters fans, they want to be the Ghostbuster. They want to put on the flight suit and wear the gear and wear the goggles and, grab the stick and light it up. But in terms of the toys, I mean, they don't hate on the toys. So God bless them for that. They're not like, insulting people who are into that. But there, there's a lot of Ghostbusters fans out there who are like, I don't need a little plastic miniature of this stuff.
So that's one of the most keen observations I've heard made, and it's something we talk about a lot.
Well, I am wearing these, or I was wearing
right.
goggles,
so you have
help
like
you with keen observation.
You're 100% right. And I would compare. So Ghostbusters is a kind of a weird franchise because it's a very big franchise and very well known. Like, everybody knows the Ghostbusters logo.
I know where you're going with
Everybody's seen Ghostbusters.
Yep.
But
even your channel that's a line from Ghostbusters.
The line from Ghostbusters, yeah. But it's interesting because there's a lot of like subsets of the fandom. When you get into the actual like hardcore fandom, you are dead spot on that the majority of the fans, they want the props, they want the proton pack, they want the trap, the PKE meter, day one buying it. I think Ghostbusters toy collectors are kind of a niche within a niche. But I think it's a bigger,
it's a gimmick on a gimmick, baby.
Yeah, right, exactly. I know. It's Peter Venkman on a pole match. But I think it's grown, especially over the last 5 to 10 years.
Just because there's so much good stuff that's coming.
There's a lot of good stuff, and Mondo just did Real Ghostbusters, premium figures for the first time. So all that to be said, we were curious. Like, when we heard it was going to be 12,000 for this Ecto, I was doing the kind of mental gymnastics, going, man, that's a lot. I mean, it's a great offering. You've got the Ecto-1 for the standard edition, or you get the deluxe edition, and it comes with 7 figures. It's amazing, which is amazing. Yeah.
And they ended up throwing in Tully too, which was supposed to be a early bird thing.
Yeah, I hate early birds. Always seem to backfire for some reason.
I hate the tiers, but when they did the early bird, I thought that's better than the tiers. The tiers really just rubs me the wrong way. Like, like the cost of what they are, all of the HasLabs are expensive, but it is what it is. You just have to be realistic and understand that this is not a retail mass produced thing. It's going to be niche. It's going to be your dream project. It's not supposed to be just another iteration. It's supposed to be that's it. Like that's your ultimate proton pack right there. I don't see them ever making a better one. That's your ultimate Ecto. I don't see them ever, especially when they just threw everything but the kitchen sink at it and went, okay, you got the 1, you got the 1A, you got all of the Ghostbusters 2 figures. So they're not even doing a separate run of Ghostbusters 2 figures.
Right.
And then to do the bonus Tully with the early thing, I'm like, it's better than a tier, but man, that's just going to be that sticking point if it doesn't fund, like Mustard and Ketchup, the flight guys
from the
flight deck.
Sky Striker.
Yeah, like that's always going to be like, you just couldn't throw it in, could you?
Couldn't throw it in.
I was so happy they changed gears and just said, okay, go ahead and have it.
I really like the idea of doing a deluxe offering where you just get everything. I think there's appeal to it. You can have somebody who's never bought a Ghostbusters action figure. They put down the $400, and all of a sudden you've got a whole collection. You've got the Ecto, you've got the Ghostbusters, you've got Slimer, Library Ghost, plus Tully. I think one of the things that, they did a really good job of in the marketing in talking about this, but I think it's one of the most important things is, seeing it in person and knowing the team that consulted with them. They worked for months with the Ecto Tech team. So Greg and Nick and Kip and those guys, they're basically hardcore. Like their life is being like Ecto-1 historians. They know every part, every piece, when it was refurbished, what the original was, what the redo was. And in Hasbro, the team at Hasbro, Emily and Pat and everybody who worked on this consulted with them for months, and they would present them with, this is where we are. And I was in some of the calls. These guys would pick it apart, be like, right, wrong, wrong. And then they would go back and make the fixes. So you're going to get a level of detail on the vehicle that, listen, the Blitzway 1/6 scale Ecto-1 is impressive, but any Ecto-1 enthusiast is going to be able to go up to it and tell you all the little intricate details that they got wrong.
Mhm.
So it's not just that it's a 6-inch scale Ecto-1 for the first time, but it is going to be the most accurate Ecto toy that's ever been released.
Mhm. One thing I liked about meeting the Detroit Ghostbusters, they were talking a little bit about how the fandoms, some of them can be very picky, gatekeepery, and that can happen with any fandom.
Sure.
But what I really appreciated about that particular group, the Detroit Ghostbusters, is that they welcome everyone. Come one, come all. So if you want the expensive, authentic, accurate flight suit, cool. If you want to make your own uh, Proton pack, or even like the deluxe, more expensive Spirit of Halloween pack, cool. If you want to wear the cheaper pack, or if you want to wear a Kenner pack, if you want to wear the cheap Halloween flight suit, come one, come all. There's no nitpicking. There's no, actually, you got that right. And I find that Ghostbusters, because it originated as a mid 80s comedy and not something, Transformers was a cartoon, but it
Sure.
had more gravitas than a lot of the other cartoons. And G.I. Joe was, rooted in war, or military and war.
Military, right?
And Ghostbusters, from the onset, never took itself seriously. Was basically, some people might forget this, was basically a full-length Saturday Night Live skit. Even though they never appeared on Saturday Night Live, it was filled with SNL guys, and it felt like an SNL skit full-length movie. I find there's more people who just don't take it so seriously as much as they take all the other, Star Wars, for goodness sakes. Because Star Wars was all about, like, life and death, and the destruction of the universe and planets being blown up and this mystical force. But Ghostbusters was just, what I really love about it is just they're exterminators. They're schmoes. They're schlubs. They show up to something that makes most people crap their pants, and they show up and go, oh man, I'm so tired. I need a vacation. And then they fight these paranormal entities that would put a gray streak in your hair and make you crap your pants. But these guys are just like, oh man, 7th one this week. It's just another day at the office. So I find that it goes over to the fans as well, where the Ghostbusters fans that I've met are just laid back and chill and cool too. They just mosey around and they're like, they're just so laconic and not worked up, generally speaking, as much as the other fandoms.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been that kind of vibe for the Ghostbusters fans, and I think that's why, like, if you go back just to the point you're originally making about, Ghostbusters, when it came out, it was just the next big comedy from that group that had made Animal House and Meatballs and Caddyshack and Stripes, and this was the next one. So I think it took them all by surprise when it became a franchise. And I was born in '84, so I was born just a couple of months before the movie came out. I was right in that prime age of, by the time I was 3, the real Ghostbusters was on, and by the time I was 5, Ghostbusters 2 was coming out. So that was kind of that specific timeline where it that was my franchise. It just spoke to me. I think sometimes people are surprised that there is a Star Wars level fandom, hardcore fandom around Ghostbusters, because I don't think a lot of people really think of it that way.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of interesting. Yeah, but like, yeah, if you look at no slight against like the 501st, the Star Wars cosplay group, but those groups tend to be very like structured, and you have to have the correct specifications with your armor and your props and everything, and like you said, with most Ghostbusters franchises or groups, it's pretty much, do you like Ghostbusters, do you want to come do some charity work,
Yeah.
do you have a khaki shirt you could wear, like if,
Since you brought up the 501st,
yeah,
I wasn't going to bring them up, but since you brought them up,
oh yeah,
I did. I had an Anakin Skywalker costume some years back. Oh boy, it was about 10 years ago, and a lot more than 10 pounds. So I don't fit it in anymore. But I got like a cheap base costume off of eBay of the Anakin costume, and then I upgraded the tabards, the leather tabards, and
yeah,
got a nice, real looking belt, high grade looking belt with it, and the master replica's lightsaber. Wore it to a few events. People were like, wow, that looks amazing. You should join the 501st. You should apply it to the 501st. So, okay, what's the 501st? And he told me about it. So I did all of you got to do a lot to be
right,
accepted into their group, and the pictures and the this and the that. And I sent it in, and it wasn't up to snuff. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because every single person that saw my costume at multiple conventions was blown away. But you got these guys saying it's not up to snuff, and I'm thinking it is up to snuff. Maybe there's something wrong with your grading system. And then at the event, I mean, the one I was just at with the Detroit Ghostbusters, I wasn't even in the full costume. I had to cross the border to go to it, and I wasn't keen on bringing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator across the border, because you never
sure.
know who you're going to get, and if they get too nosy, they're like, what the
What
hell
is
you
that?
got in the back there? I'm like, well, it's an unlicensed nuclear accelerator. Pull over. So I thought, I'm just going to wear this thing that I'm wearing right now and some khaki pants. So I wasn't even in like my proper coveralls or anything. I was just moseying along. I didn't know what I was going to find. And those guys are like, Ghostbusters fan, get over here.
Right.
And they were
Yeah.
super cool. And then I got recruited. They were like, come on. Like, they were taking pictures with fans and waving me in, saying, come on in, do the point. I'm like, but I'm not a Detroit Ghostbuster. They're like, you are now, come on. And that was it. Right. I wasn't even in the flight suit. And they were like, you got a Ghostbusters hat and a jacket. Come on.
Good
So
enough.
I just
You
love
fit in. Yeah.
the acceptance
Yeah. And
of
it's
it.
interesting. There is a lot of that, and I think, like any fandom, especially like in like toy collecting, like there's always going to be strong opinions and gatekeeper stuff, and
It's first world problems.
big personalities and all that. But it's
It's first world problems. And I think
yeah,
it's also, I think if you were blessed with living through the dark times, and Star Wars was a big one, but Ghostbusters was too. There
yeah,
were dark times in Star Wars. I got into Star Wars when it was dead. I didn't get into it in the early 80s. I mean, I watched Ewoks and Droids cartoons on TV, but I really got into it in the early 90s when it was
yeah.
dead. It
It's
was
nothing.
deader than Kelsey's nuts, or whatever the the expression Cornette uses. And I kind of like it, because it's like everything is more special when something's dead. Same with Transformers. It was dead for a
Right.
while, which just made you go back and reread and rewatch what was there and made it more special. Ghostbusters, for the longest time, there was the legend of Bill Murray never wanting to sign off his likeness rights. So like, we could be getting Ghostbusters toys, but Bill won't sign off. So
Yeah.
there were no 4-inch O-rings, there were no 6-inch, there were no Diamond Select 7-inch weird scale, there no 12-inch dolls. It was
No, there
just,
was literally nothing for like, I mean, Ghostbusters, or the real Ghostbusters, ends in like 91.
and that's not even, I mean, I love
And
the real Ghostbusters,
oh yeah,
and the show feels so much like the first movie, but that's still not like movie Ghostbusters. They had to
right.
work around the likeness issues,
Yeah.
even that.
No, you're 100% right. So yeah, there was just nothing. I mean, there was just rumors of a possible third Ghostbusters movie for 25 years,
Yeah.
And I think those dead times are, they kind of, I agree. They're fun times to dive in because, you become a Star Wars fan in the early 90s and there's books and you can look backwards and get the VHS and the laser disc and whatever. And, but also those dead times is when headcanon starts taking off.
Laser disc. Okay, hang on. I'm going to put in laser disc number 3.
Yeah. Laser disc number 3.
3 of 4.
Yeah. But when the headcanon starts taking off, when they finally make the new thing, that's where fandom starts splitting because, it doesn't, well, that's not what I thought it would be. I've been dreaming of, what the Phantom Menace should be my whole life, and it's not what I want it to be. So now I'm angry.
So speaking of which, and I thought we were going to talk a lot more about the Ecto, but it's fun.
Yeah, let's get into it. Like whatever you want
about Ecto. But I just wanted to touch on that because you brought it up. Phantom Menace not being what it was. Ghostbusters sequels, Ghostbusters 2. I've come to really appreciate it over the years, and it's never the first one I'll pop in, but it's always the second one I'll pop in, or sometimes the third one now, because Afterlife really hits the heart, because it's just it's a great Ghostbusters movie, but for me it's a beautiful tribute to a beautiful human being. Harold Ramis. I'll tell you, this is a really, really sweet moment. My wife doesn't know much about Harold Ramis. I think the only Harold Ramis movies she's ever saw were Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and then what she saw of him in Afterlife. And she asked me just last night, she said, what kind of a guy was he? Because everyone knows what Bill Murray is like, away from the movies. And Dan Aykroyd is Dan Aykroyd. He's Dan. And Ernie Hudson, salt of the earth, great guy. But she's like, what was Harold Ramis like? And I said, well, honey, I don't know what else to say other than he was just such a sweet man. He is just such a nice guy. And so I just went on YouTube and I found Harold Ramis interview, and I knew it doesn't matter what I pull up. 30 seconds of Harold Ramis talking and anything will show you exactly what he was.
Yeah.
And he starts talking, and he's basically Egon, but smiles more. And just such a sweet guy. You could just tell what a sweet guy he was. And I was so heartbroken when he passed away. I didn't know why. I'm like, I like Ghostbusters and I liked Egon. Why is this hitting me so hard? There's been a lot of celebrities I didn't know who passed away, but it was like Roddy Piper. It was like, I don't feel as though I just lost someone I'm a big fan of. I feel like the world just got a little darker because this really, really wonderful human being is not part of it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. I mean,
so Afterlife was just a beautiful tribute to him.
Well, Afterlife's amazing. I really, really love it. You should. His daughter wrote a really great book a couple years ago called Ghostbusters' Daughter, and it's basically like her account of having Harold Ramis as her dad. There's a lot of like really great personal stories and anecdotes, obviously. Yeah, Harold, he was so smart and he was so introspective and
humble
and like probably brilliant. I mean, and he made some incredible movies. Like I remember
he did the first Vacation too, directed it.
Directed Vacation, directed Caddyshack, directed
the interview we were actually watching. He's talking to the interviewer, and it's a very pleasant conversation, and then she flubs at the end and she says, so tell us about Vacation 2, and he just goes, oh, I'm not involved in that in any way.
Yeah.
So she's like, whoops. But he was so graceful about it.
Right. I remember being maybe 10 or 11 or 12 years old and watching Vacation, and for the first time realizing where this is directed by Harold Ramis and putting 2 and 2 together and being like blown away. Like, wait a minute, what? So yeah, he was well, I think the reason it hit so many people hard, especially around that time, the Ghostbusters video game came out in 2009, and there had been a lot of speculation of a third movie. We were hearing about it a lot. So, and then Harold had kind of, he was sick for years and nobody knew. So I think it was just a gut punch to everybody.
Yeah. Ghostbusters, the video game, though, that is my Ghostbusters 3. I have a complete trilogy. A lot of Ghostbusters fans do too. We have a complete trilogy of original Ghostbusters crew, and it's the game. And I don't play many games every year. Metal Gear Solid 4 every once in a while, I'll pop that in and play it from beginning to end, or the first one. But Ghostbusters 3, the video game, feels more like watching a movie than playing a video game, because it's just so hilarious and on the exact same wavelength as the first movie.
Yeah, and that was it was very surprising at the time, because look, here's in this, we can tie it back to the Ecto. Anytime there's something really cool in the world of Ghostbusters, it's always, to me, I'm always surprised, because my PTSD to being a Ghostbuster. I mean, I've told this story so many times on our podcast, but this is the first time I'm on your show, so I can say it here. My family got a computer in like 1996, so we got AOL that day. The first thing I ever searched on the internet was, is Ghostbusters 3 happening?
Oh, that's awesome.
At whatever, 12 years old. And then I found, there were Ghostbusters fan sites, which, Proton Charging and Ghostbusters HQ were my two go-tos. And then 20 some odd years later, becoming part of the fandom, like I've become friends with those guys and consider them, close buds. So the fandom's meant a lot to me. So anytime there's a, when they did the HasLab Proton pack, I was shocked, because I was like, I didn't think anybody would ever be able to mass produce this quality. I mean, that's the only pack I have, and
yeah,
it's a showstopper when people walk in. But
not to mention, I mean, I just include this with the pack now,
yeah,
but it's technically it's two separate releases. And they're amazing.
Yeah, but they really, with the Ecto, it's the level of detail, and it is like, I can't say it's a holy grail item, because to me, holy grail is usually something old and vintage and rare.
Owning the real thing would be a holy grail for you.
That's the holy grail. Yeah,
having it in your garage.
But it is a dream item, though. Specifically, if you're a Ghostbusters action figure fan, if you had all of the Matty collector figures, or even if you had all the Diamond Select figures, which are a little bit bigger, it'll still scale really nicely.
So talking about the HasLab Ecto now. I had a poll on my channel recently, a couple days ago, and I asked, which one do you prefer, Ecto-1 or Ecto-1A? And I was expecting the first Ecto to win, but it won in a landslide. It's 85% for the original Ecto and 15% for Ecto-1A. Obviously, goes without saying, Ecto-1, the original, is great, but in terms of like a collectible, a toy, something durable and something that has lights and sounds. So if I had the real thing, well, I'd still probably pick 1A, but like in terms of a toy, it's 1A all day for me. Yeah. And I know that's heresy for some people, but like if I could only choose, and I'm backing it, and I love the idea of it being able to go back and forth between the two. The only issue is and it's nice that they're including vinyl decals, which are somewhat removable, and you'll get extras. I would have loved magnetic, sticker or magnetic panels, so that you could easily just swap them on and swap them off and go between the two. But I think mine will be in 1A mode for quite some time, because I always call it the crap. I love the crap on the roof. I love how ridiculous it looks, that it looks like it's going to tip over every time it takes a sharp corner.
Well, if you watch some of those videos on our channel, my wife Abigail, who is one of our members of YHS podcast, she says it in the video at some point. She says the Ecto-1A is like, it's a representation of what it was to be a 1980s sequel, right? It's bigger, it's dumber, there's more lights, there's and I mean, if you think about what we're looking at right now, we're looking at Bill Murray holding a toaster and Harold Ramis holding a mug with a balloon, and then we've got slime blowers. Like, everything with Ghostbusters 2 is just a touch sillier and a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. But that like I said, I was 5 years old when I saw Ghostbusters 2 in theaters, so that just speaks to me.
So I was just talking with my wife today about this as well.
Yeah.
I said, what's crazy to me is that on the poster, it was the ghost doing the 2.
Yeah.
But it's in the movie too. Like when they redid the Ecto, when they got new flight suits, like they didn't use the original well-known in that universe logo, but they went with the 2. So it's kind of meta. And so you got to wonder, like, people on the street in New York City seeing Ecto drive by with a ghost doing a 2. Why is it doing a 2 in the movie itself?
We've had long discussions about this. So we've come down to, it's either the movie description, it's either a peace sign, like keeping the peace, or it's, Ghostbusters is back with twice the know-how and twice the equipment, and
That's
but
a good
really it
explanation.
just makes no sense is
No,
the answer.
it
And we
doesn't. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
yeah, but
Look
they
at
they
that
really
door.
they knocked it out. They've got the accurate black and yellow caution striping on the sides, and then like the more orange tinted caution striping above the doors. One
Oh, I
thing,
never even noticed those were different shades of yellow.
yeah. And it'll probably be a shade darker once the finals come, because that was one of the corrections the guys made.
And they
Um,
couldn't. They couldn't with how much it was going to cost. It was going to be a lot more if they were going to have an animated
yeah,
thing. So a great consolation is just to light the whole thing up and have these different panels that you can slide in there.
yeah. It comes, I think, 7 changeable panels, and you can customize both sides. And I think
So
the
cool.
thing to keep in mind, and this is where you start to see that the knowledge of a toy collector versus like a Ghostbusters generalist, it is still a toy. It's not supposed to be a scale model. It's not supposed to be die cast. People are like, why isn't it metal? It's like, those options are out there.
Yeah.
But this is a toy. It's a premium toy, and it's a collectible toy, and it's an expensive toy. But at the end of the day, this is a toy for your action figures.
It might survive if it falls off the shelf.
I wouldn't test
It might not, but what I mean is it has a better chance of surviving a drop onto carpet than the Blitzway thing does, or 1/18 scale diecast model does.
Sure.
I mean, I got the 1/24 Jada Ecto some years back.
Okay. Yeah.
And hadn't really looked at it for quite some time, and took a look at moving stuff around, and the light on the side broken off. No
Yeah.
idea when I did it, no idea where it went.
Right.
Just nothing, and it's gone. So that's another reason why I like toys, is because I've dropped a lot of stuff and bumped a lot of stuff, and it tends to survive a lot
Yeah.
more, not just like the
Sure.
futzing around, but some of the accidental stuff as well. And
So another really cool thing is they've got it rigged to where when you change over the roof rack, it triggers unique lighting patterns for
yeah,
each movie, which is just really cool. And they just went all out. And like, toys are expensive. Everything's expensive these days, but like toys are really expensive. So when you do the cost breakdown for the deluxe package, when you think $400,
Mm,
you're getting 7 figures with it. Plus, it has a ton of accessories. I mean, you can see the value compared to, look, we'd all love to pay $100 for it, right? Like, obviously, we'd all love to pay $50 for it, but
yeah.
I thought $3.99 for the amount that you get: 4 packs, 2 slime blowers, 6 streams, various Ghostbusters 2 themed accessories, plus there's never been ghosts in Plasma series, so this is the only chance. Oh, let me 2 seconds. I can grab some. I'll show you. Hold on 1 second.
Sure thing. I'll go through a couple of the comments here. No, I don't believe they do have a payment plan, and no worries. Yeah, definitely will do more turtle stuff in the future. And yes, it does roll. That's another cool part about it. The popcorn bucket did not roll, but this will.
Yeah, it really rolls. So Hasbro was kind enough to send over a grayscale prototype of the Slimer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's in focus or not.
Fantastic.
Here, let's let Slimer steal the show for a second. There you go.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's the
Awesome.
the Plasma series Slimer, and they sent out a couple of these to a couple of the channels, and it's just, it's a resin printed Slimer, but it has a little articulation. And I cannot wait to get the real one. I mean, that's just really, again, you got to have Slimer if you're gonna have a lot of Ghostbusters toys. It's like law.
Yeah. When I was you've backed the project, I'm assuming.
So yes,
How many?
Well, I started thinking about, like, on Etsy, there's going to be people who make a kit to upgrade it to Afterlife with the, all that stuff. But I backed 2.
Okay.
I backed 2 of the deluxe versions just because I do want to have both of them on display, and Yeah.
So I was very, very close. Backing one was a no-brainer. Absolutely will do. And I don't back every HasLab that comes out, but the special ones, and I recognize this. Like I got the little Playmobil Ecto-1A, and that thing blew me away. Like,
Yeah.
wow, lights and the sounds. And this to me is just as nice and special and cool as the Playmobil. It's just bigger and better. It's just way bigger and way better. So I was definitely going to back one. I was very close to backing two because I just like, so I don't have to keep swapping them, right? Like so I
Yeah.
can have both versions without swapping them. And since I haven't bought much in the past year, I could almost justify it. But once I got to the final tally screen, I'm like, oh my God, that's too much. It's just too much for two of them. And I got to be happy with just the one, and I'll swap it maybe every once in a while. But looking at all the stuff that was included in it, they do have the two different options, and one of the options is cheaper, and it doesn't come with the 1A roof or any of the Ghostbusters 2 figures. And it's nice they've included that as a second option, but I just don't see why you would go that route when you get so much more
Right.
for the deluxe and just turn around and sell the figures. You know, you
Well,
might not
that's
be able to sell the roof on its own, but the figures you could sell on their own.
I think there's a world where the first couple weeks when this thing delivers, I think the Slimer and Library Ghosts are going to be going for $100 each.
Really?
Yeah, I think that if you wanted, okay, I'm not officially recommending this, but if you were to back two of the deluxe, I think you could make a good chunk of your money back that first week or two, flipping the other set of figures.
Yeah, see, that's just not something I've ever been interested in.
Yeah,
I'm not a toy dealer. I'm not a toy seller. I've given away so much stuff just because I just don't want to deal with selling it, and
sure.
I don't like haggling. I hate haggling.
Yeah.
You know, like
Tell me the price. Yeah.
I just recently sold some stuff, and the only reason I sold it was very rare stuff, and the only reason I sold it was because the guy I was selling it to, it meant the world to him.
Okay.
And I wouldn't just sell it to any schmo who was, you know, I'll give you a ton of money for it. Like, no, I like this stuff. But this guy loved it so much more than I ever did. And I didn't want to haggle. I'm like, whatever you think. And the price he gave me was way more than I ever would have asked. And I tried to haggle him down. I said, dude, have you seen how much milk and eggs cost? And
Right.
he's like, no, I know what this is worth, and this is what it's worth.
Yeah.
So like that's how bad I am. I haggle down when I'm
Too
haggling,
nice.
because I just, you know, I almost wanted to just give it to him. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
because it just means so much to you. I want to just give it to you, but like that's
No, I get it.
with what it was, that wasn't really an option. Heading to bed. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Always great to see you there.
Um,
It's going to end. Joel seems to think it's going to hit 15,000 backers.
well,
So so
I
we both
just
think it's going to fun, but what do you think it'll hit when it crosses the finish line?
so if you're interested in no pressure, in our little private chat here, I sent you a link to the tracking chart with all the HasLabs.
Oh, cool.
And,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. So the successful HasLabs have all followed a very similar, not I shouldn't say all, a lot of them have followed a very similar pattern where they
Am I okay to share this on?
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, this is
I just did.
yeah,
Sorry.
this is public facing.
Okay.
I'm glad I sent you the right link. So you see a trend on various HasLabs where the last 48 hours it really just skyrockets.
Yeah.
It happened with the Proton pack. It happened with the two in the box.
It
So if
makes sense because things happen last minute.
sure,
Either one of the reasons I always wait to back these until near the end is because you never know, your car could break down, and that's boom, all of a sudden that trumps any cool toy
sure,
or a family member, especially if you have pets. No pet medical costs are
oof,
required, and I've had to deal with that a lot in the last couple of years, and so that trumps any cool toy. Any As much as I love the Proton pack, as much
yeah,
as I love the LJN Dusty, paying for my dog's medical bills trumps that. So
right,
it makes total sense. And plus, you just never know. They might throw another thing in or
right,
something else to sweeten the pot. And it
yeah.
just,
I do like that they're really good. They don't charge you until after the campaign, which I really like.
yeah.
Even if you use like a debit card or something, they don't do like a hold or anything. Um, So I think that can be enticing for people with like, hey, if you think you're going to back it, go ahead and back it. But if you see here on the so that red line kind of in the middle is the Ecto, and you can see there it really flatlined for the last couple of weeks.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it was doing really well, and then it's just been like the last 3 days. I think it's up maybe 1,500 in like the last 3 or 4 days.
I think it's because they got wind that I was going to have you on the
That's
live stream.
it had to be that. So and now I mean it's within 600 or 700 now, I think. So I definitely think it's going to fund. It'll be really interesting to see how high it goes. If this ends up with 17 or 18,000, I am going to. I don't take joy in telling other people they're wrong, but there's been a lot of naysayers over the last couple months saying this isn't going to fund. It should have been Ecto goggle, or what toy collectors do a lot of the times, they go, it should have been, and then they insert whatever the thing is that they want the most, which I understand. We all have our wants. But yeah, it just seems like it's going to fund. It doesn't end till I think Monday night at midnight. And, maybe people were just waiting till they'll get their Thanksgiving. I don't know, money. Do people get money on Thanksgiving in America?
No.
We don't.
I don't know. There's another good brother in the chat, Jared. Good to see you. No need to pay to fix a car if you've got an Ecto.
Exactly.
Not actual advice.
But yeah, it's just cool. You asked me. I think it'll probably be somewhere between 14 and 16 is my guess.
Not that I don't care. I personally don't care how many of these, like, as long as it crosses the finish line and backs,
Sure.
that's what's important. But what I've seen happen time and time again with it's happening. It happened with Star Wars. It's happening with toy collectors. They're trying to, in my mind, what I think happens is they're trying to justify what they're a fan of. Because in the old days, I'm a little older than you, so it might have been a little more prevalent than when you were growing up, but you were pretty much the scum of the earth if you were a geek or a nerd.
Yeah.
Like you were, the first Revenge of the Nerds movie, that type of thing. You were not well liked. You were an outcast. You were persona non grata. And I think for some of the old school guys, they try to like justify, this is cool by acting like it's a sport. So I see so much sports related behavior with movies and comics and toys.
Right. Yeah.
So they're like cheering on the number is like, it's like when they cheer on the box office, like, yes, we did it. The movie is number one at the box. Who gives a crap what the movie made? Like, how does that affect your life? How much a corporation made at the box office? The same goes for a corporation making a toy. Like, so they're making it and you're getting yours, and that's what you should be happy about. But to like live vicariously through a corporation making extra money, like I don't get it. Like it's not a competition.
I think there's a little, so I wonder if some of that comes from the thought that if this is as successful as the last Ghostbusters HasLab, that would justify Hasbro doing another one or something along those lines. But at the end of the day, we don't know the numbers. We don't know we don't know anything. That's one thing. One message.
We don't know much here.
Yeah, one message we talk about this a lot on Toy Anxiety is majority of the arguments we all get into about all this stuff is usually pretty anecdotal. None of us are we don't work at Hasbro. We don't have the financials. And even the people who work at Hasbro, sometimes they're just, the people like the public facing team behind the HasLab, like they just work for a company. They're just trying their best and
they're feeding their families.
Yeah.
I want to say hi to Gaz, another good brother in the chat. He's got the No Ghost logo there. Going after Hasbro is a really scummy thing to do because it's a company made up of really, really good people, like any company. And they're trying to feed their families, support their families. There's a lot of great people working there. I mean, just look at these HasLabs. I think the Ghostbusters HasLab team is the pinnacle. I mean, the G.I. Joe HasLab team does some great stuff, and the Transformers team, but in my opinion, their HasLab Ghostbusters team is second to none. Like everything they put in the Proton pack and what I've seen with 2 in the box and now with the Ecto, they really, really
Yeah.
are the best in my opinion. But when you were showing off this graph, what I was thinking was it's probably the last toy proper that we're going to see for Ghostbusters. I think they're going to just stick with the props if there's any props left to go, like maybe a HasLab slime blower. But
Yeah, I don't know.
if it just limps across the finish line, it's cool that it funded, but I don't see them doing a firehouse.
No, not in plasma series scale. I wouldn't
Right.
think so. And because I just don't think I think G.I. Joe Classified is kind of its own world. G.I. Joe I feel like they could put out a classified scale Defiant and it would fund somehow at
You think
$3,000. Like it's just a very hungry fan base.
definitely a Sky Striker. Like first week, I would suspect first week.
Oh,
HasLab
like a
Sky
6-inch
Striker
scale.
would find.
I mean,
Classified.
I've got the Hiss tank and I want to get the other ones. It's just really quality stuff. But they haven't officially announced this. They've kind of hinted on a couple different shows, including ours, that if the Ecto is successful, that because people have been asking, a lot of people missed out on the first wave of Plasma series. So people have been asking if they would re-release or do something for the Ghostbusters 1 Plasma series figures. Excuse me. And it seems like they might do something, maybe like updated with I don't know if it'll be like new head sculpts or new uniforms, or I think
the slime guys are great. I got them right behind me here.
the
Plasma slimed.
Oh, the glow. Yeah. They
Glow in
did a
the
great
dark.
job.
Yeah. So if they just reissued those, that'd be great.
Well, the thing is one of the reasons that I think this stuff is so good is Sony and more specifically Ghost Corps, which is like the production office that handles all things Ghostbusters under the Sony banner. They've got great people who really care, and they're really creative, and they're like, so we've been told multiple times like Sony is a great partner to have for Hasbro. I'm sure when you get into the Marvel, Disney, Lucasfilm world, it's probably a little bit harder across the board. So yeah, as a toy fan, we're always thinking about the future. It's always what's the next thing.
I wish we weren't like that. I wish we would just appreciate, and I certainly appreciate what I got in my toy room. And I encourage people who have a lot of stuff to just take more time to appreciate what you got than what's next. It can just be a reflex. I mean, it's just such a habit that you can't help but be like, but where are we going to park the Ecto?
Yeah.
Just park it on the floor. Don't worry about it.
I know. It's like I've gotten away from pre-ordering and worrying about how many big bad toy store orders I have in the pipeline. Like trying to live in the moment a little bit more these days. But yeah, I'm really excited about this Ecto.
And with that, I got to play this. Oh, looks like we got a job. That's a fire alarm going. I don't know if that came through, but it looks like we got a job. That's all the time we have for tonight.
There we go.
But thanks everyone for joining us in the chat. And Craig, thank you for joining me on my channel. Great to chat with you here.
Yeah, we'll have to have you join us on one of our shows soon. And yeah, I'm happy to get out here and just talk about Ghostbusters. It's my favorite thing. So
I'd love to. You have a great crew there. I dropped in on one of your live streams a while back, and yeah, definitely. Let's chat about pretty much anything, but especially I love talking about Ghostbusters.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks everyone. Have yourself a great night. Take care. Who are you going to call?